Hello, everybody. Welcome to another video from the RPA Vanguard channel. My name is Andy Menon. In this video, we're going to be talking about the UiPath App's file picker and storage buckets. Before we begin, let's take a look at some of the prerequisites that are required for this application to work. I'm going to switch over to the Orchestrator instance, and under the shared folder, I have created a series of storage buckets, and each of them is dedicated to a separate group of files. And it's pretty obvious from their names what they're meant to do. For example, shared Excel file repository is to store all kinds of Excel files. And if you look at the documentation, the allowable file types are XLSX, XLS, or XLSM. Similarly, for images, there is another repository, and so on and so forth. In this demo, we are going to be focusing on just a couple of them to show you how the app works. But you can always extend the functionality of your application to work with multiple repositories like you see here. So once you have set up these repositories, the next thing that is remaining for you is to spin up a new app and then pull in the repositories into your app. And if you click on the plus and you go to storage buckets, and if you're doing this for the first time, all your repositories will be visible to you, and you have to select the repositories you need to be pulled into this app. In this case, I've selected only 3 of them, and you can see the description of those repositories as you click them one by one. And once you have made your selection, you hit select. And once you hit select, you will be able to see those repositories under the Orchestrator folder. So at this point in time, we have integrated our storage buckets with our vanilla UiPath app. Next, let's start with the demonstration of the app that's been built in the most basic state. And I'm going to call it the vanilla implementation. That's because it uses the default attributes of the file picker and storage buckets to build a functional application. So with that, I'm going to click on this link, and it brings us to this simple interface. And you can see that there is obviously a file picker control, and there is a hint for users that tells them what are the kinds of files that are allowed to be uploaded. So in this case, I'm going to demonstrate a PDF file and or a text file. So I have a bunch of samples here, and I'm going to drop a PDF file here. So once I've dropped the file, I upload it. There it is. There is a control here that becomes visible once the file is uploaded, and it will display the name of the file that has been uploaded to your repository. So if I switch back to the storage buckets, go into the PDF files repository, you can see that the file that I uploaded is visible here with the same name that was displayed in that message. Similarly, if I go back, the one way of resetting this control is to go back and come back to this page again. And this time I'm going to drop a text file, and I'm going to upload this file. So upload is complete. Going back to the storage bucket, you can see that the file is visible here. That's pretty much how a vanilla implementation of a file picker control with storage buckets has been built. Let's jump back to the App Studio and look at the internal workings of this vanilla implementation. Okay, so we are back in the App Studio and I am on this form, the form page, and that's named page demo to file picker vanilla. And this is the design of the app that was just demonstrated. And here is the file picker control. So to create a file picker control, you just go to add new control, select file picker and drag and drop it on your designer surface. Now, if I click on the file picker control, there are many number of attributes that you need to configure to build a practical application. The first thing is you need to bind it to an app variable. And here I've already created a variable and that's called var file upload. And as its name suggests, it captures the file that the user drops onto this control. The other two bindings are very important. You can regulate or limit the size of the file that's allowable for upload. Here it's set to 10 MB, which is I think the default, but you can also reduce it or increase it based on your needs. And the other important attribute is the allowable file types. And this is a CSV list of all the file extensions, including the dot. So you can see that it's .xlsx, comma, .xlsm, .pdf, etc., etc. The next is the helper text that appears underneath the file picker control. I've made it a bit more useful. It tells the users what the allowable file types are and what's the maximum file size is. The other important attribute is the download only. Now, if you enable the download only option, then this file picker control becomes incapable of uploading files, but that's not what we're doing here. The whole intention of this app is to upload files with using the file picker control. And therefore, I have named this file picker control as file picker underscore upload because I want to be very clear on the functionality of what this control does for us. But if you want to use this to just download files, then you enable the download only. Next, we move on to the events. The file picker control has got two events that can be triggered. One is the file added event, and the other is the file removed. From the names of these events, it's pretty obvious what they do. The file added event is triggered when the user drags and drops a file on top of the file picker control. So I'm going to edit this rule. And here I have a set of set values actions. And what I'm doing here is I'm capturing some of the notable and most useful attributes of the file picker control into app variables. Now, you might ask me, why am I doing that? Because these attributes are already available in the file picker control. The answer is very simple. First, the app variables can be made available across different pages of the application, whereas the scope of the file picker control is limited only to that page. So there is a certain amount of flexibility when you're using the app variable. The second advantage is that if you're repeatedly using the attributes of the file picker control, or any control for that matter, and if you want to work with them frequently, there's a problem. If I click on this, and if I want to pick up the file name that's attached to this file picker control, I'll have to drill down to that control and then select the attribute that I need. This is pretty tedious if you are going to be using that particular attribute, especially the file name, in multiple places. Now, you don't want to be doing that. Instead, if you capture that into a variable, an app variable, it's very easy to work with the app variable because if I click on this box again and the resources come up, all I have to do is scroll down and pick up the variable that I need. The third advantage is if I go down, here is an expression that I have written using the file name and the file type. And both of these are app variables. And what's happened is this particular expression is become highly simplified. Now, if I did not extract those values into these variables, then this expression would look pretty complex. So using an app variable or app variables simplifies your expressions, especially if they are a bit detailed and a bit more intricate than a simple function or a simple expression that you see here. So in the file add event, what I have done is I have captured the file name of the file picker. Remember, this is the file that's actually dropped on the file picker control by the user. So the file name is stored in the file name variable. So I'm sourcing that into this app variable called var generated file name. Similarly, I'm going to also pull in the file type, which is either a .pdf or .xlsx into the var file type variable. So these are the two attributes that we'll be frequently using in the logic of this app. So that's pretty much what the file add event is all about. So I'm going to close this out. The next event obviously is the file removed, because you have already observed that when a user drops the file, they have the option to remove it as well. So if I go in here and drop a file, the file removed event is triggered when the user clicks on this trash icon and deletes the file. So if I delete, the file is removed. So what I do here is I go to the file removed rule, click on edit rule. And what I do here is I reset all the variables that are associated with this file picker control. And that is the status message that we'll get to in a few. So what I'm in essence doing is completely resetting the file picker control. So with the general and the events configurations complete, the next step we'll be going to is the upload button. So here, if we go to general, there is something that you have to take note of. You can see that upload file disabled attribute is controlled by the file type of the file that is dropped on top of the file picker control. What that means is if the user drops a file that is allowable, that's on the list of allowable files, then this button is enabled. Otherwise, this button is disabled. If I go back to the app, you can see that the file upload button is disabled. If I drop an allowable file, for example, a PDF file is allowed, the button is enabled. If I remove it, the button is disabled. Similarly, if I drop a file that is not allowed, the button remains disabled. So you can see how we are associating the file type, the allowable file type, with the behavior of this upload button. So here again, you can see that I have directly used the attribute of the file picker control. Instead, I'm going to rewrite to use the app variable. So I click on, I scroll down to the app variable and I say var file type. And I save, preview. There you see the button is enabled. So delete, the button is disabled. So you can see that how your disabled expression has gone from what looks like a very complex expression to a very simple expression, which again takes us back to the advantage of using variables or app variables to work with the most used attributes of your file picker control. Next is the event that is tied to the upload file button. So I go to upload file events, and then I edit this rule. And here I'm going to inspect the file type of the file that's currently being uploaded. And if that file type is .pdf, then I'm going to be uploading the file to the shared PDF files repository. And then I'm going to give it the name of the file. Please note that this is important. There are two options here. One is to use an auto-generated name, in which case the app generates the file name for you. And if you disable this, this particular field is blank, but you have to give it a name. So you can see that I bound this to the var generated file name app variable. And once you have configured the upload part of it, the next step is to configure the completed part. And what we'll be doing here is just to confirm that the file has been uploaded correctly. The when completed will return the uploaded file name for the app to handle once the upload is complete. So I'm setting a value where generated file name is equal to, and I drag this in, and that way I can confirm that the file that I've uploaded has indeed been recognized and is present in the storage bucket. And the next thing that we'll be doing is populating the status message. And what I'm doing here is informing the user that the file has been successfully uploaded to the shared PDF file repository. And you can observe that the variable that I'm using, the var generated file name, is actually populated with the file name returned after the file upload. And then the next step is obviously to configure the errors. And in here, we can use the error message or the error type variables to display in our error messaging. So here again, I'm going to set the value of the status message and concatenate the file name and also the error message to show the user what the error was when the file upload failed. Similarly, what I do is I inspect the file type for a text file. And if it is a text file, then I upload it to a different repository. And in this case, it's a shared text files repository. And the last thing that is remaining is this status message box. It's a text area box. And if we go to the general settings, you can see that it is bound to the var status message variable that we just worked with. And if I go down, here is the hidden attribute. And the hidden attribute is regulated by whether or not the var status message is blank. So if the var status message is blank, then this control is hidden. Otherwise, if the var status message is populated by any of the actions of the upload file button or the file picker control, then this box becomes visible and that message is displayed. So if I close this out now and preview, let me drop in a text file and I upload. And here is the message. It shows that the file, the name of the file, has been uploaded to the shared text file repository. And because this message was created and is not blank, this control has become visible. Although you've seen this in action, I'm going to cover this as a separate section in this video. One of the important aspects of the file picker control is the ability to control the type of files and the size of files being uploaded to your servers. You really do not want users to upload unsafe files or upload a massive 2 gigabyte or 4 gigabyte file up to your server. So it's very important that you regulate what are the types of files and what are the sizes of the files that are being uploaded to your storage bucket. So for the purposes of this test, what I'll be doing is temporarily disabling the ability of the file picker to accept all files except PDF. And I'm going to drop a text file on top of this file picker. And sure enough, you can see that this file was blocked from being uploaded. So this is one control mechanism where you can limit the kinds of files you can upload. So going back, I jump back to the design. I'm going to close this out. And this time I'm going to limit not just the type of file, but also the size of the file. I'm going to reduce this down to 1 megabyte. This time I'll drop a PDF. Remember, it is accepting PDF files, but we have limited the size of the file to 1 MB. So I'm going to drop a file that is clearly greater than 1 MB. So this is 2067 kilobytes. That brings it to about 2 megabytes. And here you can see how easily the file picker control is able to block a file that is not acceptable based on the rules that have been configured for this app. And therefore, it is very important that you think these aspects through so that you can build a very practical and a safe application so that users can upload only officially accepted files and also files that sort of fit a certain size requirement. So in the next video, what we'll be doing is take a look at some of the limitations of this vanilla approach and then try to build a more practical application by overcoming at least some of the limitations of the file picker control in UiPath apps. Thank you. And if you like the content of this video, please do like and subscribe to my channel, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.